Well, I'll start. We're recording now, so if and when.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I tried to get a hold of you to ask you a couple of questions yesterday and today. Is anybody, and there wasn't anybody at town hall, or is anybody
So yesterday, yeah, well, your message went to straight to my voicemail, but I was off yesterday. So I got it this morning and I tried to call you back an hour ago and left you a message.
Okay.
I was pretty slammed from this morning, but I did get your message this morning. But to your question, when people call town hall, they'll have to leave a message and then people call them back. If that's kind of your bigger question.
Well, I called your cell number
and
too.
Kayla, there normally is one person there every day. It's just that sometimes it's the treasurer, sometimes it's me, so it's not always someone who can answer the kinds of questions that Miranda might get.
Sure.
So that's why it's important to leave a message.
Well, I did leave you the message the first couple times, so.
Yeah, I got it. I don't know if you got my voicemail. I called you back an hour ago and left a message. But
I was actually on the phone talking to May at that point.
It went straight to voicemail, so I figured you were probably on the phone.
Yeah. Everybody ready for the snow?
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
That's May here. Hi.
So we've all been chatting, but we were just waiting for you if you wanted to call the meeting to order.
Very good. Yeah, this is my least favorite meeting time because it's chore time, but I'm up to date, so I want to call the housing meeting together for Envision 2030, and I see Kayla's here, Ron Mitchell's here, Atashna is here, May Gerald is here, and Miranda is here. I don't know about Karen.
She's here.
Karen is here. I did have plans already tonight, so I will be on for at least 20 minutes, and then I'll have to get off. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Well, so we've done roll call, and our next order of business is, I don't have the agenda in front of me. What's the first thing?
It's the goal of tonight is to work on the goals and objectives. And then before you adjourn was a discussion of if you wanted our 2018 building code team to come to your next meeting and then setting your next meeting date. That's kind of what to accomplish in the hour.
Okay. We did talk quite a bit about goals and objectives last time, and I know there's an interest in trying to kind of chase down some of those threads to see about their practicality. I sent out an email. Tashna sent out an email. Is there any discussion among the group on either of those two?
Yeah, I have some questions. Ron, you probably do. Why don't you go first? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try and be short. May, I was reading your email yesterday, and I just wanted to discuss one item that you put in here. It's the third one down. It says, Ron and Kayla, would you comment on the ideas landowners and potential developers of affordable housing in perpetuity? Would you consider this as part of a potential project you may envision? What type of incentives would have to be present? Okay, here's one of the problems with affordable housing is it has to be subsidized, but there are ways that I think people who need affordable housing can be helped until they can actually get some. And I've proposed this idea before, and I want to do it again because I've seen it work, and it's very simple. An incentive for a developer to do affordable housing is that not all of the housing that he has is in that category, but one of the things that happens that people don't understand is that housing markets go up and down, and in the Netherlands area, they go up and down dramatically for both rentals and sales. They normally trend up, but there are dips. And when those dips arrive, somebody who needs affordable housing might be able to get it if they had, or were in a program such as I'm going to tell you about. And I'm going to try and take just 3 minutes so that I don't preclude others from speaking, because we only have this hour. It's really simple. If a project has some quote affordable units, you make them maybe the first year somebody stays there, they get a 40% discount for the year each month. And that way, if you have a school teacher that comes, she's got a job locked up, but she can't find a place to stay, or he. So they get one of these reserve spaces at 40% off of the market price. And then the next year it's 30%, the next year it's 20%, the next year it's 10%, and the fifth year it's market price. That gives that person 5 years to look around as the market goes up and down and try and find something that is suitable for them, or be able to be on a list for bona fide, legitimate, subsidized, government subsidized affordable housing. Because one of the things that happens is that you can only build so much affordable housing, and we have quite a bit in Netherlands, but people have long lifespans these days. So if somebody gets one of those units, they may be there 40 or 50 years, but there's always a need of more people coming. So that's one of the ways that I see you could incentivize a developer, and that is to be able to have a program that is in motion for people that need that kind of housing. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand how I've explained it?
Yeah,
I do.
Ron, are you talking about housing that would be just regular housing, but then because it's someone coming in this program, that you lower the rate on that particular apartment or house or whatever to the 40%, then 30, then 20? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. There's another component. To get that program installed, you would have to have some sort of increase in density other than what is currently allowed to be able to build those houses or those units. Say you have 20 units and you take 10% of the units and you put them into this program. If you can have maybe 2 additional units over and above what are allowed and make it 22 units, that's a bonus for the developer. And that's the kind of incentive that would induce a developer to consider a program such as I just proposed.
Very interesting.
I've seen it work in other communities.
Uh-huh.
And it's a concept that has to be well understood throughout the people who have the power to approve of such a thing. And this is the place to start. Thanks.
Okay.
Ron?
Yes, Natasha.
I think that sounds very interesting. I don't know if it sounds like it's only applicable though through private developers. And my question regarding that is, who would administer it, and how would it be administered?
Well, it'd have to be administered by the management of the building. And
Okay.
if you have 20 units, it's almost a must to have a resident manager on site.
Okay.
A 20-unit building won't run itself.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this is like it's a program instituted and signed on by private developers, they're management companies.
Yes, a management company could, if there wasn't an on-site manager, a management company could do it very easily. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's very simple management. It's not complicated at all, but it has not only inducements for the developer and property owner, it has inducements for the resident, the tenant, to afford them a real bargain for a period of time, but it also it ends. They have to be vigilant and try and get out and find housing that will meet their needs. And as the market goes up and down, and I did this for 50 years with my youth hostels until I sold it. And people would come and stay for short terms and look for housing, particularly in Boulder. And Boulder always has a tight housing market. But come April and May, when the students are all leaving, the market loosens up tremendously.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, the market around Netherlands has a similar characteristic. And one of the reasons is because we have free bus passes. So we do have quite a few students living in town because they can go right straight to the university from Netherlands. And so they do take up, I have no idea what the percent of housing is, but I see these students all the time.
So how would you word that as an incentive?
You increase the density, you allow the developer to build more units than is normally allowed.
For this particular type of program?
Yes, yeah, this is how you would do it. If the density were, say, 20 units and you allowed him 24 units, he would cover just about, well, he wouldn't cover his costs at 40% off the market. But by the time the person was at 20% on the market, he would cover his costs.
So what's this type of program called?
Well, you can give it any kind of name you want. You could, it's really, it's not a subsidized housing, so I guess you could call it
flex rent.
Flex rent, yeah.
Okay, flex rent or incentive rent. So, again, this is the kind of thing where we're looking, and I'm looking at workforce housing. I'm gonna look at people who are employed and jobs that where they can't make market rent when it's on the top of the cycle, and that's one. And you never know when that cycle is be. Usually, for a school teacher, it's in the fall. As they come, they've got to be in class, and they got to have a place to stay. So some of these units also could be daily units or weekly units.
Well, Ron is a name for that.
Yeah, I know that. It's called an STR. But nevertheless, something like that could be part of the program. But, times change, people's attitudes change, and I think the time for this kind of program is here.
Okay, so in the objectives that I put down, there is an incentive that has to do with increased density. How would you work what you're proposing into that, or would it already be covered?
Well, I would have to really write out a little prospectus for this. Which I haven't done. I just saw May's question. I thought, gee, I'll answer it in this manner, and I haven't. But I could do a kind of a skeleton program for this.
Well, I'm talking about in the objectives that I already put down under residential increased density. Give me 2 lines to put into that, incorporate into that.
Okay. Density could be increased by a factor of 20% if 10% of the increase is in this program.
Okay, the unnamed program.
The flexible program. The flex rent
program.
The flex rent program, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it's hard to put specific numbers on things right now without because the cost of building, you have to amortize that into your overall project at some point, and for instance, that may be your break-even point, Ron, at if your building costs are $250 a square foot, but if your building costs are $350 a square foot, it's going to make a big difference on how that flex rate plays out. I love the idea of the concept of it. I think is really good. The nuts and bolts of trying to get specific numbers right now, I think, is a bit premature, but I do think it's an idea certainly worth looking into.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Those were examples as ideas only, not. I mean,
Exactly.
you can't.
Right.
I agree. Yes, you're absolutely right. You can't put a tag on it without some study. But I can tell you right now, current building costs in Netherland are in excess of $400 a square foot. And with the new building codes that are coming in, they're going to require fireproof siding. There is going to be an increase in cost. So I'm thinking we're probably going to go up to 435 or 450 when those codes pass. And you're right, Kayla. It makes a big difference. The per square foot cost of building makes a big difference as to where your break even is. And
absolutely.
And I, from personal experience, a lifetime of building and working and running apartment buildings, you need enough units to be able to have resident management, because this is one of the problems the town has suffered a lot, and that is lack or absentee owners. When they have a problem on a rental housing site, there's nobody on site to get a hold of, and there's always this question of how do we find the owner? How do we get this resolve the problem? And that's why it's very close to mandatory to have resident management on the site. Well, you can't do it unless at $400 a square foot or $450 a square foot, and unless you have a minimum of 20 units. That's kind of the rule of thumb. And as Kayla says, you can't put costs on it, but overall, you can see the concept of how the program would work. I hope I made that clear. So,
Okay, I just added under the objectives on the list that I have, I added another objective. It's just one line that if you could take a look at it and see if that addresses what you're talking about in a clear manner.
You also want to try to share your screen. Do you see at the bottom an option that says share?
Oh God.
I can also do it for you, but I don't have it pulled up right this second.
Okay, so I click on share.
And then you click on the screen, it'll pop up a couple of boxes, and you'll click on the screen that you want to show us. Perfect. Yay.
Okay. Oh, I learned something. Now I just have to remember it. Okay. So what we're discussing, Ron, I've incorporated that as D. Does that hit the mark on what you're talking about?
Could you read it, Natasha?
Oh, sure. Create a flex rent program based on a percentage of units and administrated by a management person.
I
think you're jumping the gun. I think you're trying to write these things down. You have under objective 3C, you have flexibility in density requirements.
No, you're looking at the wrong one, Kayla.
Well, let me jump in. This is May. I think that we're not really going to go over every objective. I don't think we have the time to agree on everything. I think we're still in the brainstorming session. Atashna, I think you've really provided us with a lot of area for discussion. And I think perhaps that we'll need to connect by phone as we continue to work on this to start to flesh out what is workable and so on. For example, Atashna, In your objective number 3, increase residential density by redefining density from units per acre to the number of bedrooms per acre, no bedroom larger than 15 by 15. This is very technical, and I don't think that I have agreed to anything like that. And I think that as we put up these documents for discussion, we have to understand that none of this is sealed in stone. And the more discussion we have, the further we get. Already, there has been an understanding here from Ron Mitchell, who is in a position to significantly contribute to some of the objectives of senior housing, accessible housing, um, fireproof housing. There are a lot of reasons that we want to hear what Ron has to say, and I think Ron's put years of his life into this, and he's been very clear. It's already 5:21, and we all know a snowstorm's coming. I'd like to move on if we could and get some feedback from Kayla on all of this, and
Okay.
then do another roundtable kind of after she speaks. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, I would like to just quickly interject that under objective number 3, C, D, and E are there for my discussions with Ron.
Great.
Well, your item C, Atashna, brings me to the point that I want to make once Kayla's had a chance to speak, because I want to talk about alternative housing. And I don't, Kayla and I had a chance to chat for a minute, and we are in agreement that not everyone can afford the standard of living that we consider American, the white bread standard. Not everybody can afford that. The public cannot necessarily to afford to house every person, every homeless person who's in need. And I did get a chance to talk to Pastor Hansen just really briefly today. Haven't had a chance to follow up on anything he said. But it's kind of like when I ask a guy, how many trees in a trailer load of trees? He goes, well, it depends on how big the trees are. Or how much fuel is ethanol? It's a percentage game. There's going to be a percentage of housing, such as Ron is proposing, workforce housing. That is for people who have jobs or they are students. We have the issue of senior housing, very important, and we don't want to lose track of that. And we have the issue of people who are really poor that that actually really contribute to the town. And I have a lot. There was a guy who offered to pay the amount of my taxes on that lot, which at that time was $200 a month, to park his trailer there. And he lived in this little tiny trailer. And I kept that trailer for the longest time because I thought, especially with Chris Larson living right next door, there'd be some interest in seeing how do people live that don't fit into society. So that's a discussion that I want to have. I want to access what Hansen referred me to in the niche program that we've talked about. Haven't had a chance to follow up. So I think we need to have many levels, and that's why this is such a challenging assignment. And I know that Kayla's put a lot of thought into it, so I'm going to turn it over to Kayla here. But I just wanted to say that we have to be careful about making broad strokes. If you watch the paint this with Jerry Yarnell, he'll say this is a number 5 brush. This is a number 2 brush. We have to be careful what kind of brushes we're using as we're stroking out the design of what we're envisioning. I don't think we should leave out the people who can't afford to be a part of the system. I mean, my tenant used to help Public Works get their trucks running. someone went wrong with a truck when the garage was over there, he was there to help them. These people that are throwaway in our society are not necessarily useless. Anyway, I'm done.
Okay.
Just one quick thing, Natasha, we'll talk offline on this so Kayla can get her presentation in.
Great. I had a couple of questions to start out with. And Tashna, I want to clarify or change your wording a little bit here when you say to have subsidized housing built that enables local elders to age in place. Some of the local elders want to stay in the homes that they've been in for 30 and 40 years. Some of the elders in this community want to downsize to a townhome where they don't have to do all the maintenance on something. There is no product for them to do that. Some of the elders in this community need to be helped with subsidized affordable housing. So I think the idea of maintaining that element in our community is really important. We don't want folks, we need housing on every stratus. How do we get that, and how is it, who's going to provide it? So I think when you are writing this, you are doing this, I feel, from the perspective of an elder person who wants to be subsidized but stay in the community and has had a hard time finding housing that is affordable. But I'm saying there are also people that are quite well off that just don't want the maintenance of a big home that they were in 30 years ago when they raised their kids. They still want to stay in the community, but they don't want the burden of taking care of a big home. So that was when I was trying to qualify your word elders and what did you actually mean? I think you put them into a tight of a pigeonhole. Second question, and this is maybe a Karen question. Right now, isn't there a provision where affordable housing, for instance, the Boulder County housing, their lease with them or what they built is staying affordable for 35 years. Isn't that the normal timeline on projects that are built unless otherwise stated?
My understanding is they did not say at any point it's going to lapse.
Well, you're
back
talking
and look at it.
specifically of the Tungsten project, but I'm saying in general, affordable housing usually has a 35-year expiration date on it.
No, it really depends on the developer and the development and whether or not it's government
Publicly
entity
funded.
building it, or if it's something that a developer has to do based on the code. For instance, some municipalities say you have to have so many percentage of affordable housing in whatever you're developing, any residential unit, and then they will be the ones who stipulate how long it has to stay affordable. So I wouldn't say there's a hard and fast rule. Government housing tends to be in perpetuity, or at the very minimum, 35, 40 years. But the private-public partnerships and then the private developers, it really just depends on where they're developing it, what's in the code, that type of thing.
Do we have anything like that in our what is our current code?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't have anything called out specifically in code that it incentivizes affordable housing and makes any kind of requirement about that. If you're interested in looking at a community that's got those in place, Longmont actually recently, so within the last year, came up with some really good incentives for affordable housing. If you guys are interested in researching that.
Absolutely. One of the other things that I had a question about was the ability for builders to you had on here, Atashna, some of your things about waivering fees for sewer and water tap or expedited fast track and permitting processes. Some of these things they're all governmental policies that, how would you work through that, Karen, so you're not actually showing either favoritism to or mandating more restrictions to a builder or another builder? Is there enough flexibility in these things that it can be worked out, or are we dealing with codes that are just set and we have to apply them?
Well, that's why I suggest you look at an example of a community that's already doing it. And really the ones in Longmont I find to be the ones that are the easiest to understand and how they're implemented. So basically the code language is as good as the code language is written. What you would want is to have real clear explanations and for it to be equitable and for it to be somewhat easy to enforce so that it's not a huge burden on the enforcing body. So I know that's not giving you maybe the answer you're looking for, but it's very complex.
What it did is it qualified it as far as kind of being a chicken and egg thing. They didn't have codes to deal with that specific project, so the developer came to them and said, this is what we need to make it work, and then they created the codes to allow that to happen.
Are you talking about Longmont?
Yeah.
No. Nope. Longmont was a many years process and looking at what's best for the entire community and what do they want to do for planning their community, and then input from all different players. And no, not based on.
So they had the codes in place before this developer came in.
You're talking about one developer. This is not about one developer. Never has been for Longmont or for Boulder, and really shouldn't be for Nederland either.
Right. You
really shouldn't build code based on what one developer is asking you to do. That's
absolutely
not.
That's why I'm saying it's which chicken and egg.
Well, that's what, you guys have this great opportunity, right? You're having this wonderful conversation about it and could make a recommendation, whether it's to the full Envision 2030 committee and eventually to the whole town in the Envision 2030 document, where, I think you're getting too mired in the details, and instead just have a goal to increase the affordable housing inventory by such and such a day, and that, or such and such a year or whatever, and then just say, an analysis of code and determination if there's incentive, how you can incentivize affordable housing in the code, but don't necessarily get caught up in the details, because that should be something that the entire community basically collectively comes to an agreement on. This is what makes sense,
I'm agreeing with you 100% on that. I think we set what are the larger goals and not get mired down in square footage. That'll happen with building codes and everything else that you'll have to go through when you actually propose this project to whatever the town has to go through its process. And so I think we're all in agreement that there certainly is, there's the school of thought that says infill, infill, infill. And then there's a school of thought that says, one other point I wanted to make is there are times when, and I have to do this politically correctly, I hope I do, that there are requirements that are set out when one wants to build something. And I'm not saying that this has happened in Nederland, but what I would like to stay away from is the ability for projects to promise things and then not come through with them or be able to buy their way out of what the promise was, and there is no accountability. I would hope that when we do this document, that the housing portion of it somehow has an accountability tag, that what you do, what you agree to, you really have to do, and and I guess that'll happen during the process. But I've seen projects where there are requirements made and promises made, and then what you do is there was a gigantic project they did in Boulder a little while ago where the builder just paid a couple extra, several $100,000 more and bought their way out of the necessity to have an affordable component in it.
Right, but that's the way their code is written. So the thought in Boulder is that if they don't put it in their development, but they contribute an equal amount of money to this pot of, this pool, then that will go to affordable housing that the municipality might be able to build, or purchase land so that they could start working towards that.
Right,
So
but
that
ultimately
just
the bottom
depends.
line is nothing gets built that is under the guise of calling itself affordable, and you're back in the same boat that you were in when you started about trying to provide product that is accessible to every strata, every age, every need, every desire. So,
well, I do have to
sense.
pop off. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm already a little bit late for what I was going to do with my family. So, thank you so much for all of you for showing up. And I know you're in great hands with Miranda.
Have you gotten your shot?
No, but hopefully soon.
You're going to be able to hug your grandkids? I hope.
I'm okay that way. We figure out a way.
Okay. Well.
All right.
Have
Good
fun.
night, everybody.
Love you, dear.
Good
Bye.
night.
Hi, Karen. Thank you.
Good night, Karen.
May, I want to jump in for a second. Because I think this is a good discussion, but I also want to touch on the question of zoning from a different perspective. I recently had a home added next to me that came in according to the ADU thing, which was supposed to be, affordable housing, but by a sleight of hand turned out kind of the opposite. So, Atashna, in your objective number 3, C, increase residential density from units per acre to the number of bedrooms per acre. Well, first off, when somebody buys property in town, like I did, there's a zoning code, and there's only so many buildings that are allowed under the code. So, under our new ADU thing, now we have pretty much double the potential of many of the lots in town. So, and they're not achieving the affordable housing goals. The house next to me is a dream home. It's a 2,000 square foot ranch that technically shouldn't even be on that lot. So, when you say, I have had like a discussion for 2 years, or it's kind of been one sided, I guess, with town staff about their PIF fees for development and how they could modify those so that a build that might be an $18,000 build of an innovative structure would pay a less of a tap fee than a $2,000 dream home. So it used to be they were talked about charging more for PIF. I was there for all the discussions about should we charge them a whole tap fee, yada yada yada. Should it be by the bathroom, by the unit? How do you define a unit? That right there, objective number 3C. I mean, we've been talking about that in town for about 4 years. So, and I want to invite everybody to attend the public charrettes that are going to be held by the Board of Trustees with the goals of our committee in mind, which is to supply the needs of people that live and work here so that they have housing with dignity, Kayla's phrase. And it's an excellent one. And for some people, housing with dignity is maybe 90 square feet. So it's not the same for everybody. So I think we should keep that in mind. So there are these public charrettes. We're talking about the building code upgrade. As Ron mentioned, this is going to seriously increase building costs in town. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm totally in favor of having a more fire-wise community and pursuing every avenue for that defense. So you might want to tune into these public things. I think that as a committee, it behooves us to attend these meetings and see what people are saying, introduce our ideas. But I can say, as a taxpayer here, and Natasha, I'm an elder, I'm trying to stay in place, but I'm telling you, the water bill, the taxes, the utility bill, the water bill has gone up at triple the rate of every other utility. And I wonder where it's going to stop. And that's why I'm asking these questions about our utilities. Our rates are twice what they are in Lyons. So there are many facets to this conversation. And I think we really need to keep that in mind.
Can I just say, May, I understand exactly what you're saying. And what's interesting about our group, this group, is that every single one of us has come with a very specific, we have agendas, we have preconceived information notice, we have experienced all these different things. You're talking about the person building next to you, so you're having those issues. Ron, you're trying to develop. I'm trying to develop. Tashna, you've been trying to get some affordable housing up here for many years, but from a, you know, you're hoping to become one of the tenants in one of these places. So I'm guessing. So we're all coming from very specific points of view with very specific needs and desires and 2 cents worth to put into this. Has everybody here anybody here been to Santa Fe?
Yes, I have.
They have no zoning codes down there. It's an incredibly eclectically wonderful, weird city where you can have a restaurant right next to a house, right next to an industrial building, right next to another house, right next to a bookstore, right next to a whatever. And it works for them. It works. We get really, I think we're really hung up on our codes and our zoning here, because what works for one person might be an incredible deterrent for another person based on what it is you're trying to accomplish. So, like Karen was saying, we don't have a lot of rules on our books right now about coding for some of the things we're talking about. So I think we need to be really careful and very sure about the information that we bring to these meetings and eventually the charrettes and put into this document, for not pigeonholing ourselves into more regulations that are going to create more deterrence.
I couldn't agree with you more, Kayla, but I want to make a general comment before,
okay.
and I'll be quick. When I was a teenager, there were a little over 200 million people in this country. Now we have 360 million, and our population increases, increasing fast in all categories.
Right.
So we are faced with housing and providing housing and an ever-increasing amount of people, but no increasing amount of land. And so we have to use that land far more efficiently than we are now. And if we don't, it's just going to create more misery. That's all.
Well, and I think the other big thing we need to look at and also understand is that 10 years ago, when I started talking about the project I wanted to do, there really wasn't all that much of a drastic housing need. There were certain areas, and it was sort of, we kind of saw it coming over the horizon, but not a lot. So when you look at how things have changed in just the last 10 years, what do you think, Ron, exactly? Tashna, May, what do you think exponentially it's going to change in the next 10 years? Because first of all, we've been discovered. And second of all, the other thing we need to think about is we are not going to be able to solve all of the problems concerning housing. What we can do is our goal, I hope, is to do the best we can with what we have to work with under the circumstances that we're given. Because I think if we think we're solving all the world's problems or Netherlands' problems by creating all of this housing that is going to fit every need for every person forever, we are never going to get anything done, and that's an impossible task. It's not going to happen. So.
Well, I think we should at least try to look at housing on 3 levels. You said it's stratified. There are many levels. Let's don't bother looking at the luxury housing that's been developed. That's not what we need. Let's look at workforce housing, and let's look at subsidized housing. Or let's find 3 categories that we can all agree on to try and see where we can envision doing something. Thanks.
Can we just define elder, though? I have you're talking, though, about elder housing for people who are still living independently but are above 65 years of age. Is that what you're talking about, sort of, Atashna?
Yes.
Okay.
Ron, I like your list, but I think we need to add one. And that's my portion of the thing. I really feel like more than as a landowner, I would like to be the person that's trying to track down some people who really are. And so I would add to your list, Ron, we have luxury homes, and I would say we want to make those as nice as we can. We want to attract people who are going to be populating our schools that want to go downtown. They want to bring their kids down there, and they want to send them to our schools. Yeah, some of the people in the expensive houses, they're not your enemy. Workforce housing, absolutely. Subsidized housing, yeah. But again, to Ron's point, we're not going to accommodate people that are not from this region. And then I would add alternative housing, and that's what I hope people will resonate with. From my contribution, the first thing I sent out to the group was a video of the Gibran fella, I think he was in Thailand, making these foamcrete houses. Did anybody watch the video?
I haven't seen it, sorry.
Okay. You can build a house for $18,000, and you don't need a lot of equipment. All you need is one of those paddles like you use to mix adhesive for tile, and a couple other things. But this is an ingenious solution, and as I've mentioned, I lived in Brazil. I traveled all through Central and South America. We have an incredible standard of living. I think we have to face the fact that not everybody wants a wood frame construction home, that if they had their druthers, and if it really works, they'd put up an $18,000 foamcrete structure or a earth home or a straw bale home that they could build themselves in their backyard. And I don't think they should have to pay an extra tap fee. And those are projects that I'd like to see happen on my lot, which is, again, I'm going back to being a property owner, but I have a whole history in my family of wanting to provide ecologically sound housing for people who are good people, but they are not a part of mainstream society.
And that's where you're going to run into trouble with, or Miranda, maybe this is something for, we need to get a hold of building code materials so we can understand what is allowed. You may want to put a foam house there, but if we have codes that say you can't, you can't. Or we have to change codes.
That's what we're discussing in these charrettes.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. We need to have more information about what is allowed. Like, I don't think right now you could put up a yurt in the town of Nederland. I don't think they have.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm encouraging members of the committee to understand, I'm all about elder housing. I'm all about townhomes. I'm all about this, that, and the other thing. But I'm also about alternative housing. And if we want to be a progressive community and really face where we are, I heard a show, New Dimensions, about how being lost in the woods is like being a town that's lost its direction. The first thing you say is, I'm not lost. The next thing you say is, I know what to do. And finally, you realize you're really lost. We have a crisis in our community. It's not just people that are populating on the flats. So I just want to urge everybody to become active in these discussions and stipulate, what's wrong with an earth home? Why not let somebody try one? What's wrong with a yurt? If it doesn't work,
Well, that's why we need to have guidance from the coding right now, the town code. What is permissible? What is not permissible in a more, I don't want to read through the town's complete coding book, or I would be dead by that time, but something that's more a watered down version that gives us the bullet points of, you can build a yurt, you can't build a yurt. You can do container homes, but you can't do container homes. You can build straw bale, but no, you can't build straw bale. What can we build? What can't we build? What size? And, Ron, there's also an idea. I love your idea about the 40%, 30%, 20%. Maybe there's a way of doing that for people on their utilities also, where if you come into a house, it's like you start out at 10%, then work up to 20%, then you work up to 30%. If you're a teeny little home, if you're 600 square feet, you're paying the same amount for a tap that you would if you built a 2,000 square foot home. Maybe that's somewhere where we can have a certain amount of flexibility.
I agree, and that discussion I've been to many, as you have, Board of Trustees meeting, and that subject has come up, and I think it has a lot of merit. However, it hasn't passed yet.
Well, we need to start squeaky wheeling. Because I think if these ideas, this is going to be our job, guys. We need to come up with ideas and proposals, just things like that when we go to the charrettes, that then we convince and sell and educate the people in this community as to what we're doing and what we're thinking. And, there's a lot of brain power out there that is going to give us ideas too. But to come up with better ways of doing things. I just think that because it's a law just meant somebody put it on the books at one point. It doesn't mean it can't be changed, and it can't be modified, and it can't be made better. So that's our job, I think, is to try and find out ways that we can create the flexibility that you're talking about, May, creating the desire and the product that you need, Atashna, and that Ron and I, for multiple years, have both been trying to build, but we can't because we're running up against, what are the different roadblocks? Boulder County, okay, the town of Nederland codes, okay. Well, how do we work with or around and actually get something done? So,
well, you missed one thing, Kayla, and that is, for both of us, political attitudes have to change on the part of people that don't recognize and understand that population pressure is what's driving costs. And we've got to factor that into what we're thinking.
Sure.
And yes, codes are outdated, codes are incorrect, There are a lot of codes that were just made for personal reprisals and things like that. And they make no sense, whatever. I'm not going to cite any because we're out of time. But
Sure.
Kayla is right on with that comment.
I'll keep my mouth shut because I can get kind of long-winded. So how does everybody else want to put their
Kayla, I
thoughts
think
down
you
here?
expressed it absolutely perfectly. I mean, this is a multi-tiered approach, and we need clarity and commitment.
Right. Cool.
I think kind of as you wrap up, the questions really are, how do you want to proceed? Really just kind of a reminder of timeframes. We really only have a little over 2 weeks to kind of finalize your goals and objectives. So thoughts on how you want to move forward and when do you want to meet next?
I'm pretty flexible. I know, May, this is a hard time for you. What suggest a time or a different time or what you guys want to do is fine with me, except if it's real early.
Well, Kayla, I can work around it. I was a couple minutes late, and if people can live with that, I'm fine with the 5 o'clock time that we agreed on.
Okay. Are you good with that,
I'm fine
Ron?
with 5 o'clock too. Natasha, would you give me your phone number again real quickly?
Yeah, Ron, it's 720-292-0489.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's been a fabulous discussion. I think everybody's expressed themselves. So I would suggest that we try to touch base at least one with the other throughout the week and reconvene in a week. And Miranda, will there be a public charrette before our next meeting?
There is. There's actually a public charrette on Monday at 3 o'clock or Tuesday at 10 a.m. or 6 o'clock. And I was going to email that to you all right now.
Great.
Okay, and that's going to be Zoom, right?
WebEx.
Yeah, same deal.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, basically, same thing.
Can
So,
you can access it on the phone too?
Yeah, it's the same platform as
That we're
you're
doing.
calling into right now.
Okay.
So, guys, I just want to suggest that before that happens, perhaps we can start with Atashna's goal list, but add the alternative housing and any other detail that we want to try to flesh it up a little bit before that meeting. Not that we're going to present it as a document, but kind of a common ground that we're all going to be referring to. Is that practical? Of course, the power is going to go out on Sunday.
It's going to go out on Saturday, and then we won't get it
Saturday's
till
your
Tuesday.
Yeah.
I would suggest that we each come up with 5 bullet points of 5 questions that we want that we feel need to be answered so we can move forward, and 5 points. I mean, you've got them here, Tashna, pretty much on your thing, but
I've
condense
changed
them.
I've been making changes as we've been discussing.
Right.
And
I think a lot of your things are I really like when you can get it down to expedite or fast track a permitting process. Because one of my questions is, why can't we? That can be a goal and a question. So, instead of having long, that you have to have 40% of this and 30% of that, that's the devil is going to be in the detail. These are bigger questions that we're trying to ask and answer that will then give us guidance to be more concise.
Okay. Well, Kayla, I will email these to you because you're working off of an old copy.
I am, apparently.
Yeah, I'm constantly updating. And so.
Yeah, this was Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I've updated it at least two or more times since then.
I thought I saw them on my computer, but I guess I didn't.
Yeah, so what I will do is I've been making some changes as we've been discussing, and what I will do is I will send them out as an email to you. May and Ron, is it easier for me to email them to you as well?
Oh, excuse me. Natasha, I'm sorry.
God bless.
I was just going to say email's fine. And I think you want to look at objective 3A, probably be some kind of flex. I think we needed to discuss that more. So maybe we can interact on that one because I've given that a lot of thought, been in a lot of meetings on that one.
Okay.
You know, that has to come as a form of a question, and that's really going to be a big one for, you know, free waiver of sewer and water taps for all affordable and perpetuity housing. That can be huge to the town. It could be huge to, you know, that's, I don't want to say it's a can of worms, but I think it's a question worth asking, but we're not going to like the answer to that one.
That's why I was thinking maybe the flex system would work on that. And, you know, down at the state
Yeah.
capitol, they attach a fiscal note to every project. And, you know, I don't know, if we get good enough, maybe we can get a grant to get a fiscal note on various ideas that we have. Anyway, just a thought. So next week works for everybody. And we're going to continue to discuss this. We're going to try to get ready for the charrette, I guess, is the main goal for our next agenda. And that would be, like Kayla says, we're going to ask the questions. We're going to take questions, you know, issues that have been brought forward already. Maybe say, why hasn't this happened? Am I getting this right?
You know, can I just throw this out before I forget it? Because sometimes you have to say something right now or you forget it and it goes away. So this thought came into my head about there's also the idea of going outside of our box. We really have to make sure that we are capable of thinking outside this box. And the box is, instead of saying a free waiver of sewer and water taps, Natasha, what you said about grants, I think there are grants or there are funding agencies like EFA, like Betcher, like Gates that have, wouldn't it be an interesting idea to set up a funding source that was administered by obviously the town as one, maybe the ministers in town, maybe, you know, people that are involved in the charitable organizations, Chris Current and Christie, the people that know who is in need in this community, and have a granting system where you don't get a waiver for your water tap or your bill, but you can apply for a partial subsidy or help with your water bill from an outside funding source that wants to be charitable and help people out.
Kayla, those exist right now. However, they're not ongoing. Those types of funds or grants exist right now. However, they're not set up for to support people's habits or behaviors. They're generally 1 or 2 time grants to assist them with utilities.
Well, it's a funding source that's there as a safety net for people in this community. It's like, you know what? It's the middle of winter. I don't have enough money to fill my propane tank and I'm frickin' freezing. So where do you go in our community? And that's not necessarily a housing issue, but it's an offset of making it a little bit more livable up here for people.
Oh yeah, and what I'm saying is those already exist. I've taken advantage of them over the years. So I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it's just a thought.
There is a certain subset of people who don't even know about what's available to them. And, you know, what everybody loves about Nederland is we're a diverse, unique community where we kind of rely on our neighbors. And I think that's what people really want in their hearts. I've been having a lot of discussions with people about different approaches to life. And People who live from their heart may be different than people who live by the almighty dollar. And so, you know, the old ways in Netherlands, if you talk to your neighbor, you know who they are, you help them, get along with them. I think that we want to try to. I love what Kayla brought up about Santa Fe. I've noticed the same thing about Longmont, actually. That I went, I went to high school there, or junior high and high school in Longmont. And I love going up Ninth Avenue, and there's still a taqueria, little tiny taco joint. It's about
Yeah.
40 square feet. You can go buy a taco there, and you can go buy a CD of Música Sagrada Mexicana right there on Main Street, and it's about 400 square feet.
Yeah.
I love it. So,
Okay, however, as I think you had mentioned, Kayla, we can't solve all the social ills and concerns of the world, and it's not the focus of this committee.
No, but I think what we can do is make those places where there is opportunity to come to fruition instead of just spinning our wheels for another 10 years.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So we need to let Miranda go. Are we guys, is everybody good? We're good for this one. So we've got, we're going to chime in on the charrette on Monday, and Miranda's going to send us a calendar of what all the next group of meetings are. Right?
That has already been sent to you, so it's in your inbox.
Miranda, you're awesome. You really are. Can't keep up with you.
Trying to keep us organized. But yeah, you have, and if there's questions, let us know. I mean, one thing I guess I was going to offer, or it's hard to give you like, this is what you can and cannot build, but we could pull together some guidelines that say like, if you were to build blank, it has to meet these set guidelines, if that's helpful to you.
I think so, but my question would be, why can we not build a yurt? And I understand that a lot of those rules have been put in place because of, you don't want people building houses that are A, not going to be able to handle the snow load on them, B, that they'll get blown away, or C, are not insulated enough to be able to keep people warm, and that we live in an environment that is challenging. So there are some real physical reasons why there are certain building codes for certain things. But unless we know what is, we don't know what to ask.
Well, and it also comes down to, as May brings up, it also comes down to the building materials. This is not 1960. And there's been, even in the past 10 years, past 5 years, there have been so many new types of building materials that have proven themselves, and they're less expensive and they're more environmentally sound. And somehow those building codes need to be updated to account for all those things.
Well, I think that the town is actually doing that with the fire suppressing types of materials that they're wanting to use.
It's like even a few years ago, I knew somebody who was in Netherlands, on the outskirts of Netherlands, and they fought for years, I think not with Netherlands, but I think with Boulder County, about putting a turbine at their house. And they eventually had to tear it down. But the county was okay with allowing somebody to come in and have a 5,000 square foot house built as a setback along that person's property line. But it's crazy.
Right.
All right. So I know everybody's wanting to get ready for the storm. What an awesome meeting. Does anybody have any objection to adjournment?
Nope. Just stay warm and safe, everybody.
Yo. All right, good night.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Good night.